Hello, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. I'm Lady TrenettWilson, your lecturer and social historian. You can scroll any social media or watch any reality television show, and you will see one thing in common. Almost everybody has a BBL. Now, BBL is short for Brazilian butt lift. It was performed for the first time in Brazil in 1960 by Dr. Ivo Pentenguy. And BBLs have been a highly desirable surgery for women, ever since. Now, this highly coveted silhouette costs between $5,000 and $20,000, and some women pay even less if they travel to some nefarious places to get it done. Unfortunately, it doesn't always end well. Now, this figure so many women are, losing their lives for some time is really rooted in the exploitation of one black woman whose name was Sarah Barton. So let's get into our lecture. And I want to also say, don't forget, hit like, share, and subscribe. It really pushes it through the algorithm. And we do some great Black history here, the royal side of Black history, the elite side. And I thought Sarah would be so interesting because she is a hidden part of our Black history. And it's the exploitation. All these women want to look like something, but they don't understand the history of it. So perhaps if we know a little bit of the history, we can do better. So before we get into Sarah's life, let's set the table and draw a picture of the era. During slavery, white slave owners would often assault black slaves, and they would have children with them. They would also move the woman in the house along with the children, oftentimes with their wife and their other children. Now, what attracted these men to these slaves were, I'm sure, power. I mean, it had to be a power trip, but it was also their form, how they were shaped. Her bellowing lips, her rounded hips, and her protruding derriere. With no effort at all, black women are born a lot of times with hourglass figures. Now, of course, the wife would grow angry, wouldn't you? If your husband moved his jump off in your home. And that was what is happening. She, of course, was not happy. And she, of course, was not built like this black woman. So they kept on working, trying to figure out, okay, how can I emulate what my husband is so attracted to? Not only my husband, but black men as well. So in 1857, a designer, his name was Alexander Douglas, he patented the bustle. Now, a bustle is a device used under the skirt to hike it up, according to the Smithsonian. And I have a video, I have a link down below. I did a short where I wore a bustle and how people dressed back in those days. So by the 1860s, people were starting to, wear them. And by the 1870s and 1880s, all the women wore them. At least all the well-to-do women. Even black women wore them. So this did not stop the men from chasing black women. But in their attempt to recreate the perfect silhouette, they never understood the look they desired was from an exploited place. We don't know Sarah's exact date of birth. Back in those days, they didn't keep good records, but they believe she was born in about 1789 in Camdebou, Dutch Cape Colony. And at the time, it was a British colony. Now, she knew tragedy way too early, in my opinion, in her life. Her mom passed away when she was still an infant. We don't know why. And then her father was unalived by Bushmen, also called the Sand People, while out driving cattle. So she was orphaned very early, and she was raised kind of on different farms by Dutch Europeans. And so no one really raised her. She kind of raised herself. Now, in the 1790s, Sarah moved to Cape Town, where she worked as a washerwoman and a nurse aide. Allegedly, she had two children by Dutch men, but neither survived. And it is said that she had a short relationship with this Dutch poor soldier, but he got shipped off. So she didn't really have a long term relationship. Later on, they said she got married, but given what she was doing and how they was exploiting her, I don't think she probably got married. But anyway, she was living and working for a family named Kendrick. The man's name was Hendrik Caesar, and she was working in his home. And he started taking her to the city hospital to show her body for money. Now, of course, she was a slave back then, so she had no say so in that, and she also was not getting any of the money. So she began to get exploited, and they were exploiting women's bodies, and that was something that was a sick thing going on. They used to have something called freak shows. I left a link down there for you. There were two conjoined twins named the Carolina twins, and this is the kind of thing that these people did. They put these people on display and showed their body. So that's what her boss did, and he started putting her on exhibit, so he could make some money. And specifically so that people could see her bottom. Now, astonishingly, in 1810, this doctor, kind of said, hey, listen, we can make a whole lot more money over in Europe, over in London. Let's go to London, let's go to Paris, so we can make a lot more money. And so they convinced her to go. Now, there was no convincing her. In 1810, there was still slavery, so they took her and made her go. What woman would want to go and put her body on display, laughed at, gawked at? They would sit things on top of her behind. And this is offensive to me also because I have aunties who look like that. Right today, their behinds are huge. And they don't have any BBL. It is completely natural. My sister, so I'm so offended that they would, say this woman did this when she does everything she can to minimize her look. So British legal documents show that this doctor wrote to the Liverpool Museum and said, hey, listen, we can make a fortune if you let us come there and exhibit her. We'll all make some money. So that's what they did. They exhibited Sarah at the Egypt Room in people's residences, and she was known as the Hottentot Venus. Now, there were more than Sarah who were Hottentots during that time, but the reason she's known more than everyone else is because they kept her body on display for 150 years after her passing. So that's why people know who Sarah Bartman is. Now, according to a review, Sarah was 22 years old and about 4'10". It is also said that her hands were small, her feet were small, just like my aunt. This is the way she was built. But she always refused to be exhibited nude. So I guess she did have just a little bit of a voice, but they would only put barely a little clothes on her, as you can see here. Now, in 1807, London passed the Slave Trade Act, so Sarah now was free from slavery. British abolitionist Zachary McCullough, he led a charge to have her freed, and he said, listen, she is being exploited. Let this woman go. So when they took the matter to court, Sarah said she was not there against her will. So what could they do? I mean, they tried to fight for her, but she said that she was doing it because she wanted to. So she continued to tour, going to Ireland and Suffolk and Paris. And it was some evidence that she was baptized on December the 1st, 1811, at the Manchester Cathedral. It's also said that she was married that day as well, but you never hear his name or whatever happened to their marriage. But she continued to put her body on display. Let's say they continued to put her body on display. In particular, she went on a tour in Paris for 15 months. Do you know they put a collar around her neck? And even though they were getting paid, she was not. The New York Times reported she was selling her body at this point. So she wasn't just showing her body. They said she was selling her body. Now, where this evidence came from, I don't know. But she was penniless. She didn't have any money. The show started drying up because France started going through an economic depression. So they were in hardship, so they wasn't paying money to go see the BBLs like they used to. Kind of sound like what's happening today with the OnlyFans and stuff in the places where the ladies take off their clothes. They're saying there's been a shortage, money been short. So the same thing happened back in the 1800s, if you could believe it. So poor Sarah, however, if you, I can't even believe it. This child passed away when she was 26 years old on December the 29th, 1815, and she was only 26. Now, some say she passed from pneumonia, some say she passed for syphilis, but her body was given over as an experiment and put on display. Her skull was stolen in 1827, but it was returned, and it laid in a cast of her body, and her parts of her body laid in state for until the late 1970s. Now, after complaints, it was removed in 1974, and then the body cast was removed in 1976. So, to see women today want to emulate this body, again, who was actually exploited and put on display for 150 years, is offensive. It shows a lack of knowledge about what happened in our past, and those seeking to get that body, they were exploited then and put in freak shows because it was cartoonish, and it looks cartoonish today. Big old behinds with little bitty skinny legs does not match. And so if you talk to a woman who has a behind like that in real life, they'll tell you they're trying to lose weight or that they try to minimize it. It's not something they're trying to exploit. Not all. Now, some women who are built like that, they love exploiting it. But if a man only likes you for that reason, then that's not a man you need to be with, in my opinion. As a matter of fact, all of this has been my opinion, other than what Sarah Bartman. We can look that up and you can see her history. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. As always, my lectures are for education and entertainment purposes only, and the Fair Act use is in effect. I also want to thank you all for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And I want to say thank you for the super chats, you all for the Cash App. I left my Cash App below. You all have been helping me so much as we get ready for our doll giveaway. We're giving away historic black dolls every single time I go to a workshop. And if you want to be a part of giving these great dolls out to young women and to girls, y'all, please let me know. Go down below and donate, donate, donate. We're going to have a great time as I go on my tour giving these wonderful historical dolls out. Look at these. Oh, these are so beautiful. I have Ella Fitzgerald. I have Bessie Coleman, Karen Johnson. And so I couldn't do this without my Royal Black and Elite family. Thank you all for joining me today, and I'll see you on another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. Keep clicking so you can continue learning.